Hello class, I wanted to visit with you real quick about how the labs are going to be set up in this class. So basically the labs are going to be split up into two main sections, before spring break and after spring break. So before spring break, it's still a little bit cold here in Casper, Wyoming to go out and be collecting soil samples. We never know if there's going to be snow on the ground from one day to the next, and that makes it hard to be reliably able to go out and collect soil samples. Plus, the soil is just still a little too cold. It might still be frozen in certain parts of the United States up until spring break or getting close to that time. But after spring break, we should be able to go out and start collecting soil samples. So before spring break, we are going to be focusing a lot on kind of building up a foundation and building upon each other to be able to go out and collect soil samples almost immediately in over spring break and right after spring break. Now, in some parts of the United States, like the southern parts of the United States, you're already ready to collect soil samples. But since not everybody is going to be able to at that time, we're going to wait till spring break. So what is it going to look like before spring break? So before spring break, we're going to be looking at soil maps. We're going to, in this very first week, we're going to be looking at soil maps. We're going to be doing things like researching if we wanted to send soil samples off to a lab, where would be the nearest soil lab in your area? We're going to be looking at things like how do you collect soil samples and having you create a plan of how to collect soil samples. A lot of stuff, a lot of planning, a lot of preparation is what we're going to do in this first part of the class in terms of labs. Then after spring break, then we're going to start getting our hands dirty. We're going to be actually going out and collecting soil samples, and then we are going to be going about and testing for texture or measuring texture, classifying that soil by texture. Then we're going to be diving into actually sampling these soils and coming up with or testing the soil for nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus, and then the pH level. We're going to be also coming up with plans of, all right, well, we know what our soil is now. What do we need to do in order to make it better for this particular type of plant? And then overall, let's come up with a master plan of, this is what our soil type is. This is what our soil is. This is how many growing days we've got. So what are we going to actually plant on our property? Or let's come up with that plan. So this whole class, we're going to be looking at a lot of how can we use this soil for agricultural production. And a lot of these labs, if you haven't noticed, are going to build upon each other. So we're going to be looking at soil maps and identifying, what is the soil type in our area. We're going to be looking at what if we wanted to send soil samples off to a lab, where are those labs located? What are we going to do for that? How do we go out and collect soil samples? And then we're actually going to do it. And then we're going to take the soil samples we collect and measure for texture. And then we're going to measure for these different macronutrients and then the pH level. And then we're going to go a little bit further and say, all right, now that we have all this information, what are we going to actually plant? So a lot of this is going to build upon each other. So something I would encourage you to do as we go through this class is that you go out and get you a binder. And then get you some dividers to put in that binder. And as we go through the different plant spotlights, you take that information from the plant spotlight, put it in one section of the binder. As we go through these labs, take that information that we're going through in each lab and that you figure out for your own place and put that in the binder and have a comprehensive binder to kind of reference back, because that's going to be helpful whenever we get into the latter part of the semester. And then I'm going to ask you to be tying a lot of this information in and bringing it all back together. It's all right there in a binder, printed off, ready to go. So that way you're not having to go back through files and submissions and things like that. So as we go through these labs and as you submit these labs, go ahead and print them off, put them in a binder, keep them nice and neat and organized, because these labs are going to build off of each other, that's going to be a good reference for you to actually go back and do that. So essentially these labs are going to build upon each other, put them in a binder, keep them nice, keep them neat, keep them organized. And a lot of these labs are actually going to be focused on agricultural production. And on top of that, I'm going to ask you to look up information from your own region, like I'm asking to do for that temperature, wind, moisture calculation every week, or not calculation, but data every week. I'm asking you to find it for your own location. So by the end of it, you should have a lot of good comprehensive information about the soil in your area and and the soil quality for that area as well. So if you ever have any questions about the labs, please don't hesitate to get a hold of me. I'm looking forward to it, and let me know if you need anything.